Jeez.
Our first poll is on now.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. We are going to start. If you can please take the poll which is there on your screen. Meanwhile, we will wait a little while for people to join in.
Saurabh Srini here. Is this poll on not for the panelists?
No,
I'm not able to select the
only for
options.
attendees. Only for attendees. Don't worry.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you done with the poll?
Not yet. I'm going to go close this one and move to the second in just 2 seconds.
Please. Srini, you can just help out Rupesh, please. I think he has some issues, and I'm, go on mute, and if you can help him out, thank you.
Sure.
Sir, I'm done with both the questions. So the first poll, you can go ahead with your presentation.
We have 17 people. You're done with your poll, right, Maddie?
Yeah, I just said that. So you can start off with your presentation now. I'm done with both the polls. Let me know when the results to be published.
Okay. Maybe you can start with the result because we have 17 and just let them for one more minute, maybe.
Okay. Here's the first poll result. This is our audience profile. The second poll result going to be up now. So are you going to continue? I'll stop the result.
Okay. Right.
All yours.
Thank you. The screen is visible. I'm audible to all.
Yes.
Okay. Right. So thank you. Good morning. Thank you for being part of the WOW, which is a weekly online webinar brought to you by SkillEarn. We are an edtech company, and we are looking forward to have a lot many global certification courses. Let's go through in terms of what we have got in offer for the people. So thank you first of all taking your time out on a weekend. This is our third week on the webinar series, and we have already completed last to start with people. Then we did workplace, and today is the third one we are doing process. So welcome everyone on this 4th of July. What SkillEarn does, we are actually concentrating on 6 of the domains, if you want to call. The first one being organization resilience, where we are partnered, authorized training partner, and exclusive within the geography and 19 other countries for ICOR, which is, or rather with ICOR. ICOR is International Consortium for Organization Resilience, a global knowledge body, and based out of United States. They are, I can say, pioneers in organization resilience certification courses. We have got 2 of the certifications. One we are calling as CORM and the other as CORE, the details to come. Emerging technologies, we feel like these are the stream of technologies, or these are the study materials, the scope of work domain that is going to be relevant for the next decade. Starting with cybersecurity, we have got it, digital marketing, blockchain, and data analytics. We've got leadership and management, where we do design thinking, problem solving, data-driven decision making, and the course goes on. Under STEM and STEAM, very important that we are catering not only to the professionals but also in the schooling, from K-12 onwards till about people who can also program robots. So in coordination with or in partnership with a startup that we are working over here under robotics and artificial intelligence. We've got linguistic programs where we are teaching or going to have the certification courses for English as a course from general to business and written. And under life skills, we've got the finance for life or the life finances, if you want to call, women security, how to be street smart, integrity and empathy. Some of the things which we in the last 180 days have seen are important in our day-to-day lives also. So coming to the certification courses from ICOR, whom we are the authorized partner to, we have got two of them on offer, CORM and CORE, which is Certified Organization Resilience Manager. In a classroom session, we do it for 3 days, and CORE, which is Certified Organization Resilience Expert, which is a 5-day course. But thanks to the current season that we are going on, all our courses are online and doesn't need to be in class. So we are COVID compliant, if you want to call that way. Okay, so let's do some honors in terms of some of our participants who have already graduated and they are certified today as CORM. I take the privilege to first introduce to you Srinivas Raju Arunachalam, also called as Srini. Srini is the Protection and Resilience Program Manager for Alliance India. Srini, if you want to say a few words, the stage is yours.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I hope I am audible. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So just to give a brief, we have a long-term relationship with Saurabh for the past 3 years, and I came to know about CORM from Saurabh. It was a bit fascinating because apart from BCM or crisis management or IT disaster, which is my core area, core competency, it was giving a complete vast coverage of leadership. And when we are in a senior management role and stepping into the leadership level, it is good to know about the various areas and how to prepare it. So I went through the curriculum and it was a bit different. 3 clusters, 15 competencies. It was looking a bit mammoth, but it was addressed in a way like how we can just categorize it as a way of you execute in your life. So I would like to make these 3 clusters into 3 phases, I would say. First one is just to learn to unlearn, where you come to know about how to devise as an organization, how to have the vision, culture with the knowledge management, and how to effectively handle your change management process and bring the essence of agile. Next phase is more about preparing for the battle. So I strongly believe on one point, which most of the people agree, I believe. So it is better to plead at peace so that you can just ease at war. So how you equip yourself in terms of your facilities, in terms of your basic resilience, workforce and people, basically people, process and technology, and especially the finance management, which was which plays a very vital role in this COVID situation and in this particular situation where we are facing a lot of challenges in terms of logistics aspect. And third one is to face the challenges. So how we are facing the challenges, it talks more about your risk, crisis management, incident reporting, supply chain resilience. It was really a wonderful course. And one thing I would like to highlight, rather than boring you guys too much of that, during the training, I think it happened in the month of March 4 to 6. That is when the COVID was just picking up the pace in India and across the globe. So parallelly, I was attending the training, and on and off during the breaks, I was preparing the resilience for my organization. So though I took the assessment a week or so after online, it was a real-time assessment for me to gauge my skills as well and whatever I learned during this training. So I would like to thank Saurabh as well as Saswant for giving this particular opportunity, and it was really a very good experience. And I recommend this to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Srini. Thanks for those kind words. Yes, I still remember, the days were of early COVID time, and frankly, all the participants, they were from the BCM domain. They were like, we had to actually run along with them while they were taking the calls because their organization was more important. They did a wonderful, I can say, balance of act, attending the training, completing the training, as well as because it was like a 3 day, not like, they can do it at their own pace. So they completed the training and also they took care of the management and its decision making. Okay, so thanks Srini for that, and we move on to, I'm not sure, Srini, could Rupesh join?
He's still facing some challenges, so he
I
said
can
he
find
will
out.
try.
Okay.
Yeah.
No worries, no worries. It's okay. So let me just introduce Rupesh also, who has completed on the first batch. Rupesh Ramchandran, BCM program for a multinational bank of repute, and he has also completed. Again, I can only tell that they have taken a lot of effort balancing the act between the screens of doing the training as well as attending to their daily work life. Okay, so thank you, Rupesh and Srini. So why are we here today? Like I said, we have already completed from the 6 weeks. We have completed the 2 of the weeks, which is earlier for people. We started on 20th of June, place on the 27th last weekend, and this weekend we are doing the process. So welcome to this session. So what is this all about? We are going to talk in the next 1 hour, 15 minutes into business continuity, risk management. We have got, organization resilience, the leadership of it, what are the, how to do a management of the risk management, as well as business continuity, the cultures and behavior. So let's see what are the themes which are going to be primarily being there on the surface. We're going to talk about resilient business strategy, the challenges to meaningful opportunities. Yes, for the last 180 days, there has been a lot of learning before we can do an unlearning. So I think, unlearning first and then unlearning. Theme two is primarily into operational resilience, building intelligent and agile enterprise, the most important need for today's world that we have seen. So without waiting, let's introduce our panel. Panel today is really very rich in terms of their experience, the kind of background they have got. So I'm sure we all are going to learn a lot. So and one more disclaimer is all of the participants are on their individual capacity, and they are telling this on their own personal capacity and not to be as a representation for their company. So start with Bhavna Singh. She will be the moderator for the session today. Bhavna is currently pursuing a PhD in business continuity. Well, yeah, in case you did not know, she is the person to go out to if you are looking forward to having a PhD in business continuity. Yes, you can do it from TIS, which is Tata Institute of Social Sciences. She's already an MPhil in BCM for the same subject from TIS only, and she holds CBCI certification. So yes, she has knowledge on business continuity, and I'm sure we are all going to learn. Bhavna is an avid sportswoman, and she is a volleyball champion too. I learned it yesterday. So welcome, Bhavna. Thanks for moderating the session.
Thank
We
you,
have
Saurabh.
got, you're welcome. We have got Subhabrato Sina, and we call him as Shubha. He is currently the director for cybersecurity and identity access management with NXP Semiconductors. NXP is a global giant, and they are into lots of workspace into the space of making semiconductors available at an industrial and many other uses. He comes with an experience from IT leadership, which is, one of his passions is to have for IT security and risk management. Shubha has already applied for a patent and it is pending, which is into business continuity planning, testing, and evaluating the recoverability of process. So we wish him all the best. And like I said, he is representing on his personal capacity. Thank you, Shubha, for taking your time, and welcome to the panel. We now have got Pawan Desai. Pawan is the co-founder and CEO for MitKat, MitKat Advisory. Pawan has served the nation as a lieutenant commander with Indian Navy and is also a submariner. So yeah, life is very different underwater. We are over the planet, so we cannot understand what it goes through. So Pawan is a risk management specialist with more than 25 years of risk experience. One of few, I can say, who comes equally exposed to cyber, physical security, and business continuity. And just to note that he was selected by the United States Department to represent India on the international security issues. Thanks, Pawan, for taking your time out. We are really going to enrich from your knowledge. So welcome to the panel.
Thank you very much.
We've got Alexander Chaco, Alex. And Alex and I, more than a decade back, I can say that we had our interface when we were doing the CBCP together. So Alex is currently the regional business continuity head for Infosys, and he's an ardent professional. I can say a hardcore Infi person, 17 years, and that speaks a lot about him. He is heading the Global Business Continuity Program in his company. He is a CBCP and a ISO 22301 lead auditor certified. Thank you, Alex, for taking your time, and welcome to the panel.
Thank you.
Also, we've got Bharat Panchal. Bharat is the Chief Risk Officer at FIS Global, and with about 3 decades of experience, which is a distinguishing career in IT and risk management, including information security. He is, I can say, he has seen and been there for the information security and risk management, and very well holding his position. So I'm sure we will learn a lot. He's a speaker for global panels. You can find a lot of his videos online for risk management, information security, and fraud management. Thank you, Bharat, for taking your time out on this weekend, and we welcome you to this panel.
Thank you very much, Saurabh.
You've got Karan Chawla. Karan is on his personal capacity, representing on this program, and Karan is the public policy manager and strategic response for Central and South Asia for Facebook. Karan is an ex-merchant Navy officer and an established corporate career. If you see his profile in LinkedIn, in business continuity and resilience, a thoroughbred in this field. His work involves content issues that require rapid response, strategic analysis, and coordination with the leadership with regards to any of the contents that's being published. So again, he is on his personal capacity. We thank Karan for taking his time out, and we welcome him to the panel. Okay, so without much ado, Bhavna, it's all yours.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Hope you guys are doing well. In today's session, we are going to learn from the industry leaders about the resilient business strategy and building an intelligent enterprise while we enter the new normal world. Without further delay, let's begin with this session. It's been over 180 days since the situation has unfolded. I'm sure most of you are fighting the pandemic front line for your organizations. We have been doing business impact assessment in the past, but the kind of scenario was never included in our typical business impact assessment. Karan, what do you think? How do companies plan to include the scenario in the BIA exercise?
The first one to Karan.
Am I audible, Karan?
Hi, good morning, everybody. Can you hear me? Radio check. Yeah, you're audible.
Yeah.
Am I audible to you?
Yes, all well.
Okay.
I'm saying the kind of scenario was never included in
business
our
impact
typical
analysis.
Yes.
If we say that it's never been a Yeah, please. I think that's facing network issues.
Bhavna, till the time he gets back, what I'll do is I'll just upload. There are 2 poll questions, so he
Yeah,
can
if
set
you can
his.
upload the questions, yeah, will be good. Thank you, Mary.
Can you hear me right now?
Yes. Meanwhile, people are taking the poll, so let them take the poll, Karan, and we will come to you.
Saurav, I'm closing the poll, second one. Let me know when the results to be published.
Okay. So Karan is back. Karan, all well? We can start.
All well. I think I should be all set now. My apologies.
Okay, cool. No worries, no worries. Okay. So Bhavna, if you can repeat it once so that for everybody to register.
Yeah. Karan, this kind of scenario was never included in our typical business impact assessment. What do you think how companies should plan to include the scenario in the BI exercise?
Right. Thanks again, Bhavna, for the question, and my apologies. I think I'll back to differ on this aspect that it was never included in the BIA. I go back to my previous experience in the financial industries of last 12, 13 years, and it was in some shape and form, pandemic or mass absenteeism always been a part of the scenario planning and the BIA impact assessment. So, if you look at the page D5 of the Federal Financial Institutions Examination Council, which is a formal interagency in the US to oversee financial companies, they always have the pandemic planning as a part of the BI impact assessment. And it has really helped us in a lot of organizations to anticipate what can possibly go wrong. See, typically BI helps to determine the criticality of any particular activity, but the outcome of RT, RPOs, and associated resource requirements. And we look at reputational, regulatory, financial, legal, and customer impact. But what changes at the time of pandemic is the duration of that impact. Probably like at 1 or 2 days, or maybe 3 days a week or 2 weeks, but here it can go for a long, long time. As we have seen in the current scenario, it's been already 3 months to 4 months, and this can probably go for another year and so. So having a pandemic-like scenario, we need to be very clear on that mass absenteeism concept. We need to look at why and how people will stay away from the work. And we have already seen the kind of the pressures we get into from the family side, the stress factor that increases. And the way we need to coordinate our efforts together across a cross-functional team to get the work going is a differentiator over here. So this was not a black swan event. If this pandemic is a once in a 100-year scenario, like nobody knew about it, that would probably be wrong. We all knew that it's going to happen. In what shape and form, we also knew that. But we always thought we kind of kick the can down the road that we're inherently very positive people. It doesn't happen to us. The bad thing only happens to others. So that's a challenge we face as a human beings also. So I think pandemic should be considered, and I think it will get considered in the future also. But again, how much will be emphasis as the organization fight for the finite resources for different risk vector will always be a question mark over here. So I would say that down the road, keep the same BIA, but eventually start looking at the longer term impacts over there. Get guidance from the specific resources which are there from the different regulatory bodies and your corporate experience and what's your risk appetite to include that. It's no different than others, but eventually we need to see that are we ready for these human side of problems that we'll see and which are very difficult to quantify down the road. So again, pandemic or non-pandemic, it's just only differentiator is and having in the BI is the duration of event, which is very difficult to call for in these kind of things. It's very easy to replace infrastructure. If you see all of us, all the IT department came together to provide work from home capability to employees, and it all worked. If you see, are we actually in the pandemic mode? Have we really seen the worst of it? I would say no. Pandemic is the one when we see the mass absenteeism from the work, which you're talking about 40 to 50%, which has not happened yet. We are fortunate enough that our network connectivity at the home is working. Our financial institutions are working. Our people are at home and still providing services to our clients, customers. And our IT team has worked really hard to provide that kind of infrastructure at home overnight. But the pandemic will come and hit us when we see people getting sick. It is yet to come, trust me. And we're still in the sweet spot because things are working really fine. And when you see 40 or 50% of people not able to log in from home also, then teams will feel the pinch. I think it's still we have got a time to prepare for that kind of scenario when the people won't be there. I just happy to see thoughts from others as well. But again, pandemic is not there yet. So it's still just the trailer for us when actual pandemic of mass absenteeism of people not being there with the required skill sets, how it will impact the business. And we are fortunate, in fact, that demand side is not there because people are not going to the banks, the transactions are low, the volumes are relatively low. So if the volumes get high, but our people are not there, then how will you manage it? Over to you, Bhavna.
Okay, so that was a real, good and assessment to start with, Karan. So yes, pandemic has been there, but have we been doing it kind of on purpose in terms of pandemic planning, doing the risk mitigation for a mass absenteeism, like you said? So the BIA assessment, has been there, but we need to maybe just relook on because this was a nice, I can say, wake up call for everyone in the industry. Bhavna, you are on
You are
mute.
not audible.
Thank you, Karan, for your input. In case you guys are noting down something, and I'm not on mute. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Hello.
All well
You are
now. Go
audible.
ahead.
Okay. So in case you guys are noting down something, SkillEarn will be sending a recording of your session to your registered email IDs. So this has been a wake-up call, including pandemic planning as a part of the interest. What is learned from the crisis? Let's ask Bharat, who manages risks for a living. Bharat.
Hi, good morning to all, and good start, Karan, talking about BCP and all. So, in risk management, there's a terminology called unknown, and this is a real picture of unknown, what we are facing at large. If you ask me from the business continuity perspective, pandemic was, yes, it was considered. I was heading business continuity for Citibank India for quite long, 3 years, and that time in India, we had SARS outbreak that point of time, but it was there in rest of the world, not hard hit in India. But still, we did the tabletop. But it was limited to couple of MNCs and those who were aware about the business continuity at that point of time. I'm talking about 2006 and 7. But if you ask me honestly, the business continuity or its impact on operations was never ever taken so much so seriously as what people are taking today. Because in India we are typically, and I would vouch what Karan said, that in the time it doesn't hit us hard, we are less bothered. We don't care about that. What happened to others? So far it was taken as one of the tick mark or sort of compliance to make, yes, we have BCP DR plan in place, and we will be able to meet the requirement if at all something comes up. But what has happened in this particular crisis? The earlier the kind of challenges to run the business was local in nature, as long as the physical location is concerned, the power supply, the manpower, the IT support, and this and that. That was local. Now we are talking about a global village, so everyone is well interconnected, and at that point of time, the challenges were different. Let me talk about a decade ago. There was, and of course, I had a heated argument with my counterpart in US that we wanted to have similar business continuity plan of tornado and hurricane in Mumbai. I said, what are you talking here? You guys are having tornado and everything every day in Florida and that part of the world. That is not the case in Mumbai. We never have seen this, but now that's the reality, that those kind of challenges which we are facing are global in nature. So one unknown in the sense that let's not get into that wrong assumption that something which is happening in one part of the world which may not happen with us. I think we need to come out from that syndrome very, very clearly. The second thing is about the pandemic per se and how it is impacting to business today. Yes, what the Karan said is absolutely right, that the banks are working, transactions are happening, but look at from holistic view. I was chief of risk of NPCI, National Payment Corporation of India, for right from beginning to last year. So I have seen the growth of that industry very, very closely. Rather, I was proudly part of the whole digital journey of this country in last 10 years. What we have not seen that, okay, if and that was a very good, articulate here, that we were asking banks that, okay, you have to ensure the transaction integrity, availability, and the confidentiality. That is the fundamental thing required. But you need to ensure that there has to be city disaster. So at least you have to PR and DR. Now PR and DR was extended from city to intra-city to intra-city to intercity. That's a Mumbai and Chennai. We assess whether it should not be in the same seismic zone, not in the same physical location and geographic location, and all this. Later, we expanded to inter-country, Mumbai, India and Singapore. So it can give very good redundancy in terms of any kind of disaster. Third one was intercontinental. People thought of, okay, if something goes in Asia, let us think about Europe, or if something goes wrong in Europe, and that came when this flight issue happened, especially when volcano erupted in Ireland, which was impacted heavily to the entire air traffic of the world, which was again unknown, and nobody thought of that it can impact like this. So that time we thought about the intercontinental. Then that time came that let's have data center in Singapore. Same time it has to be there in Seattle or some part of the US, so it can ensure the redundancy. Unfortunately, nobody thought of, except Elon Musk. Somebody can please put on mute because I'm getting a lot of noise from background. If those who are not speaking, sorry. So those except Elon Musk, nobody thought of having redundancy and interplanet, right? Because nobody thought of that whole world will go like this, what we are today, and nobody will be able to access be it intra-city, intercontinental, or whatever. So business continuity is something which is now, which has changed the paradigm, which has changed the complete, kind of way of our thinking. I'll just give one good example, and which I've quoted many times, that the business continuity is not something which has just evolved 10 years ago, or 20 years ago, or 30 years ago. I don't know whether you all will agree with me, but I believe Hanumanji was the first business continuity manager on this planet. When Lakshmana got injured at Ram Ravan Yuddha, and he was asked to bring Sanjeevani, he was confused which one to be taken, because there are a lot many plants. And then he decided, oh, leave this plant aside. Let me take the whole mountain. So let doctor decide which one to be taken. So that was the real business continuity thought, that if plan A does not work, plan B is there. If plan B is not there, plan C is there. So we need to see the whole pandemic not only from only from disease or something, or a particular industry point of view. We need to see from very holistic point of view, because a new normal will be going to be a normal. It is going to be there today, because a last point I must tell you that in business continuity, and being a very hardcore security professional, I was always having apprehension to give remote access to anybody working from home. Hardly, after a lot of fight, and CISO and these people are never liked by people, so we need to always fight, and we allow only 2 to 3% people to work from home. That too only when there is an emergency or some system breakdown has happened. Scenario is reversed today. 98% people are working from home. Only 2% people are working at office, or because they are very critical to be in physical location. So that is going to be normal. That is not going to be new normal. That is going to be the life ahead. So we need to underline is that we need to think completely different, radically, to ensure our business are up and running henceforth. Thank you.
Bhavna, are you there?
Yes. Bhavna, you have to unmute. Yeah, now it's okay. Go ahead, Bhavna. Bhavna, are you there? Bhavna?
Sarah, you should take over.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Hi. Sorry. Thank you so much, Bharat. I'm sure that helps us in getting a better understanding of the situation. The past 3 months has been first lockdown and then unlockdown. While we're moving towards unlockdown, to act fast, and the journey to agility must start now. Pawan, what do you think? How does business navigate the financial and operational challenges in this new world crisis, while rapidly addressing the need for their employees, customers, and suppliers, including RTO?
Well, thanks a lot. I think there's a very long questions, a lot of aspects to cover in that. So I think I totally agree with Karan and Bharat. I think this is a very new normal, and yes, the worst is not over yet. So I would like to continue in the build-up which Karan and Bharat has done in terms of understanding the entire impact on the ecosystem very holistically. I think I still see I will wear two hats today. One as a business continuity professional, second as an entrepreneur. I see lots of organizations, and I'll not like to, I would like to actually pinpoint the bigger the organizations, they need to look at more holistically, because currently if you see employees, there are three stakeholders. There are many, but other things, three mainly affected: employees, customers, and suppliers. Now everybody is thinking about me first. Employers are fine till till salary is coming at on 30th or 1st of every month. They don't have a problem. They are not in a panic mode. They work from home. They don't work from home. Connectivity is good. Connectivity is bad. Not much of a problem. Once you start cutting their salaries, the panic starts. As of now, it has not started in a lot of organizations. I'll not say all organizations, but a lot of organizations, it has not percolated down to the lower level. So I think we will start seeing this happening when you start getting 60%, 50%, 40% salaries, because you are not able to deliver 100%. So in the new normal, you have to deliver 120% to expect 100% salary. If you are only delivering 70%, expecting 100% salary is ecologically not balanced on that thing. Looking at customers, lot of customers are saying, I don't care, you have to deliver. This is contractual and legal requirement. You need, if you deliver, then only I will take next steps. I'll take few examples. Few of our clients, they are saying our process is that you are supposed to submit, you have finished your work, but you need to submit your invoice physically. If couriers are not working, if you cannot submit it, we can't start processing. We are not saying not to pay, but we'll not start the process. These are very, very difficult times. So if these things are not changed, and I have to get a lot of business continuity professionals, they have to start business. They have to start understanding business very, very well, so that this whole impact is understood. Now, if I come to suppliers, most of the suppliers of most of our companies belong to MSME, which is medium, small, micro, small, medium enterprises. I hope everybody is aware, and this is very, very important point. Most of the MSMEs work at a margin of 5 to 7% net margins. Don't think they are making loads and loads of money in India, because the big companies' procurement teams are as such doing contracts which are one-sided. So they are only making 5 to 7% margin. At 5 to 7% margin, they only have working capital which is for 15 days to 30 days max. And if you change your global payment terms from 30 days to 90 days, how are these people going to survive? So what happens is, I understand that you don't bother about your vendors, what happens to them so much. But if in your RTO, if in your business continuity planning, if you have kept him or them as a critical vendor, and if he or she raises their hand, and if they are not able to supply on time, you are not going to meet your RTOs on that. So RTOs will look very good on paper, but when actual deliveries are going to happen of the services, a lot of people, and this is going to happen in, trust me, next 6 months, because now everybody is on a unlockdown mode. You are trying to squeeze as maximum money as possible. Can we reduce 1% interest fees, 2% interest fees, and maximum impact is going to happen at the lower of the value chain. And lower of the value chain is where your reliability of business continuity really, really lies. That transport vendor, that security vendor, that person who was delivering so the last mile is very, very important. And in our, if you see in our business continuity processes, the last mile is not given so much importance, because we take it for granted that this will happen. But that is where the problems are going to emerge. And that is where BCM professionals need to, I think, step up. I think I really, I'm very, very happy the way the whole business continuity fraternity has stepped up in last 3 to 4 months. They need to step up more, sit with their CFOs, CEOs, and the thing that how do you ensure business continuity in real time with the end mile connectivity? Otherwise, all the RTOs and RPOs which we talk about is in air. It is just a good presentation and a documentation. It is not going to be implemented. Trust me, next 6 months we are going to see the impact. So very, very important to have a very, very re-evaluate this new normal. And most important, be human. Very, very important to be human, because at the lower of the value chain, people who are running a few crores, few 100 crores companies, for them to get access, just a very small anecdote, I think government has done great things. They have says loans are accessible to MSMEs, but there is a caveat. This loan, which is non-collateral loan, which is available, is only to people, only to companies who already have loans, collateral loans, and only 20% of that loan is coming as a non-collateral loan. So assuming that people, the MSMEs can take 1 crore, 2 crore, 5 crore from bank is still not possible on ground. So I think these understandings are very, very important for all BCM professionals, and that then only we'll be able to implement correct processes which will really work in this new normal which is there. Because yes, things are going to change every day. So I am firm believer that this is not the time to do BIA or put RTOs. We have to run with what we have and let the process stabilize. Then only let's do the RPO exercise. Otherwise it is going to be a futile exercise. This is just my opening remarks on this. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Pawan. That was indeed insightful.
Thanks.
There has been phases since
Thanks.
March, normalcy, lockdown, and then unlockdown stages so far. We're now seeing increase in the infected population, and the graph is yet to pick according to the stats. What should be the immediate and short-term response plan to this evolving crisis? Suba, what do you have to say? How would we all as a community take into consideration the key points? Suba? You're not audible.
Myself.
Yeah, now it should be okay. But it is actually behaving a little odd. It's going on and off, Subha. On the keyboard? No, but something is wrong. Something is wrong. What can be done is, Bhavna, if we can go over to the next question and then kind of
Sure.
we will go to Subha.
Sure. Let's move on to internal audit. One of the outcomes across organizations currently is to step the pedal on cost control and reduction. In this context, Alex, do you think internal audit is a requirement exercise? If so, how do we justify the cost to the management?
Sure. Thanks, Bhavna. That's a nice and interesting query. It's something that we all industry professionals have been thinking about as a part of our routine activities. So to answer this, I just want to actually take a slight detour and maybe start with an example. Okay, so this particular situation that we are in, as we all agree, it actually has been unprecedented, and it's not just about the organization level impact or incident that is directly impacting, let's say, an IT function or a non-IT function or something like that. This has very clearly impacted individuals, right? We as people, all of us. So when that has happened, this thing about cost optimization is something that is also being thought about, right, as part of our individual actions, and that is essentially more so important, especially with a lot of job cuts that we hear about, salary reductions, and a lot of things, right, which are happening. So people, what they do, especially during these times, so they typically are looking at possibly identifying their costs into essentials and non-essentials, right? So non-essentials, which used to be possibly essentials earlier, like going out and maybe other impulse purchases, so all those actually has been maybe curtailed for the time being, and for a maybe for an extended period of time going forward. With regards to essentials, what we are very clearly seeing is a lot of focus on food and other essential things, right? That are needed to be done. So it's the idea here is very clearly identifying what is essential, non-essential from a individual perspective. And if you notice, what has happened is it's not just about looking at the bare minimum. See, there are additional costs that people have possibly looked at, though this is the time of cost optimization. And those are essentials, additional essentials I just want to highlight are things like insurance, right? A lot of focus on people going for health insurance, their coverage, all those things, right? And even if you see immune enhancers, a lot of people possibly going for additional spends on those areas. So when that is happening, so if you take the same analogy to an organization around this time, the idea here is to identify what is essential, what is non-essential, which could be possibly looked at over the next future or whatever it is. So if you look at essentials, again, it's very clear, right? Like very clearly employee costs, welfare, basic things, policy related costs which are there, regulatory compliances which obviously you cannot actually do without. So there are certain things which are very clearly identified essentials, right, which organizations cannot really touch and say, okay, we would, and even look at operational costs, right? A lot of operational costs are like routine and AMC and all those. These are things that have to continue. There's no way organizations would want to take call on stopping it, because you don't. There are other impacts, other repercussions for those areas. So when we look at non-essentials, possibly capex could be something, big projects which possibly organizations could take a call on postponing that or even abandoning it, all those things. So in a way, what is being seen, and my personal opinion on this is that, so identifying what is essential, what is non-essential, and then taking a call on what needs to be done. So when you look at internal audit as a function, so this is it's so important, because like the particular audit function plays a very clear devil's advocate role, helps with change management, help with vendor checks, your own controls checks, all those things, the areas that these agencies specifically work in an organization. And I say this very clearly from an implementer perspective, because I end up facing audits. But if you ask me, is it an essential or a non-essential, I would very clearly want to highlight that these are all essentials, because as we focus on handling this particular eventualities, I don't think any organization can take a call on losing sight on the essential aspects, right? On ensuring the right controls are put in place and are continued. Right, we are not additionally taking up risks because of the changed model that we are actually seeing today. So how do we make sure that there is an impartial agency who actually would do an objective assessment of that or an audit of that and highlight to the management and give that confidence that whatever actions are happening, is it aligned to the organization objectives, and are there any additional risks we are taking up, using which we could possibly do some course corrections, right? If you don't have the benefit of all this happening today, we could actually see larger issues going forward. And I don't think organizations could take a call on just because of cost optimization, look at stopping certain things that are essentially important. And I actually want to add this further. It's not just about internal audits. I also would want to highlight on even organizations going for external audits, right? External audits are also important, because the idea here is there are organizations which go for audits either because of client requirements, contractual obligations, or because of regulatory reasons, or because of they wanting to be having a best practice standard for which they are actually certified for. So all these are again essential aspects, because it actually continues to give that rigor to the organization on what needs to be done on an ongoing basis, as well as an objective assessment by a third party who could do a proper check on what is happening, how it is happening, and give confidence to all interest parties, right? I use that term specifically from my ISO 22301 perspective. That is very important. You have a gamut of interested parties who are aligned to typical organization functioning. So it's always it's very important to give that amount of confidence to a larger group to highlight that okay, things are still having the right rigor, and there are checks and balances to make sure that the right actions are taken care. I understand that what could happen possibly when we consider this from an internal audit perspective, maybe the mode of doing audits possibly would change, right? In the sense, all these years in a conventional audit, obviously a lot of physical checks happening, which has been the given kind of thing. So maybe over this months or in the future, I think an objective assessment of how do we have a balance between a kind of a physical audit as well as a remote audit, right? Remote anyway happens, right? For a lot of IT related audits and checks and all those things. It, again, used to be a practice, but my idea here is that this is something that organizations would want to look at very clearly. Organizations as well as even the auditing agencies, internal audit agency, external audit agencies, to make sure that there is a proper balance on how we actually cover audits as a concept, right? To put the right rigor and the right checks and balances to get the organization to be on the right track. And finally, obviously, organizations are all reporting to the board, and the board also needs to board and the investors. So it all actually plays a very important role to give the right amount of confidence that things are happening in the right manner. So these were a few thoughts. Thanks, Bhavna.
Thank you so much, Alex, for sharing your thoughts. So are we back on now? Is the connectivity all right?
Yeah, absolutely. Connectivity is fine. I think the app started misbehaving. So yeah, I can take the question now. Thank you.
Okay, so should I get back to the question? What should be the immediate and short-term response plan to this evolving crisis? What do you have to say as a community we should take into consideration?
So I think I will probably reiterate some of the points that Pawan shared. So this is the time, not the time to plan afresh. It's too late for that, right? We have to keep calibrating the plans that we already have. And we are at a time in this crisis when we are also not completely blind to what is coming. We know what has come so far. With some imagination, we can simulate what may come, right? We can simulate a range of scenarios, starting from the worst case to progressively less bad and good cases. And that's what I think we should continue to help the management do. I feel somewhere that a lot of our discussions here tend to veer on the side of largely urban modern industries like technology and ITS, which is a large employer, true, but a different, only one tranche of our industrial landscape. So we also have the other industries like the ones that I represent, right? We have fabs, we have manufacturing facilities, there are other industries, MSMEs that Pawan talked about, but also large manufacturers, right? I mean, so what these organizations are doing and what BCM as a community can really engage and help the process is to figure out how does the end-to-end process work from business continuity point of view, right? So how does the factory flow work? So if you practice social distancing on the factory floor, you may have to rejig your production lines. You may have to rejig your production plans. What is the level of production that you can sustain while implementing a good degree of social distancing between workers? And then your goods come out, it goes to the warehouse. That's another challenge, right? And what is the kind of logistics movement from warehouse to the factory and factory to the warehouse can you maintain while maintaining reasonable social distancing? that needs to be determined. Some of it we have learned the hard way, but I think the situation where we are now gives us the opportunity to plan a little better. How much can we really push? And in a scenario where our workforce starts falling sick, how low can it fall, right? I mean, if one of our one of the two warehouses are to shut down, or the warehouse is operating at only 40% capacity, what will my production run look like, right? Those are the scenario simulations and situations which I think, number one, BCM community should engage with the leadership to simulate, work out, and discuss. Second part of it is that in many traditional industries, so we talked about the production floor workflow. I mean, raw material to production to finished goods and moving out. Then there are the staff functions, right? Everything from sales, distribution, finance, works management, accountants, the general factory maintenance, so on and so forth. A lot of these cannot easily be cross-trained. You cannot cross-train a sales guy to be a cost accountant in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, right? So it cannot work. So when in large ITS like frameworks, cross-training can be a viable instrument. In more traditional industries, it's probably not a viable instrument. So you have to see, how many accountants do I have in my accounts team, right? And if only half of them can work, can I close my quarter on time, or will I need 2 more months? If my quality assessors and people who assay the products and my lab technicians, if they can't work, half of them can work. Can I really ship out my goods without doing assaying the quality, right? So it's an end-to-end chain, and we have to work with the management and help really make determinations of this chain under different kinds of scenarios and different simulations. So that's one. Second is how we can help prepare is on making decisions on how do you reallocate budget, because agreed. So we all know that money is in short supply at this point of time. Whatever you have, there are many stakeholders who want that budget, who need that budget, and all of them are deserving of that budget, right? But that is management. How do you allocate this scarce amount of resources amongst different groups, all of whom are needy and all of whom deserve it equally? And I think as business continuity professionals, we can and should get claim that seat on the table to have a view on how that can work. So how can we help set up enabling infrastructures to help the company do more? Things like VPN capacity, a very minor technology cost item in the normal scenario. But now if you scale up your VPN capacity, maybe more people can work remotely more regularly, right? And some of your flow can move on, right? Maybe like things like give as many of your staff functions who need not come to the factory or need not come to office, give them laptops, make them. So I mean, you'll effectively be spending maybe 60,000-70,000 rupees per laptop, but it may still be worth it, right? Remote viewing of the factory floor, maybe help set up remote cameras, so things like that. We have to be innovative, we have to be inventive, and most importantly, how much we succeed, how much credibility we carry with the leadership depends on how much business acumen that we have built up as professionals in this time. And whatever business acumen we have built up, whatever equity we have built up, this is the time to deploy it impactfully. And last but not the least, right? This unfortunate situation has put brakes on many different initiatives, but it has also enabled a lot of remote working, working from home. Companies have proven that it is a viable instrument. But with that has come a lot of issues around identity theft, around phishing, a lot of criminals, organized criminal activities actively targeting people who are working from home. Right. So we can enable work from home, but then if we get shut down with a virus outbreak and identity theft and phishing, I mean, that doesn't help either. So even as we enable, we have to manage the risks that go with it. And last but not the least, the counterpoint to what Pawan again talked about is that we, as BCM professionals, again should weigh in on the conversation on how we look at the long-term cost base, because we have to. So we know that this situation will last for some time and will probably keep recurring in the midterm. So what should our long-term cost base structure look like? And I think there are opportunities to discuss that a bit more as we go through the workshop. But those are my 4 points.
Thank you so much, Subha. As we move on to the second theme of the session, let's take a small break.
Thanks, Bhavna. I'm going to launch the poll now.
How long is the break?
Yeah.
No. There is no break as such. We are taking a break so that the polls can be launched. Nothing otherwise.
Okay.
Just for the poll.
So here's the first question, poll question for the audience.
There is no Maddie when we
So
are
I'm
done.
closing the poll. So I'm closing the poll. Let me know when the results will be published for the earlier poll as well.
You can, I think, publish the results of the earlier poll while this poll gets generated.
So this was the first one of the questions of the previous poll. I'm moving on to the next one. Saurav, we can move forward. I'm hiding the results.
Okay. Bhavna? Bhavna, you are on mute. You're on mute, Bhavna.
Moving towards the second theme of the session, we all know BIA processes encapsulates the critical processes and dependencies leading to the BC plan. This current scenario of disruption by COVID-19 is of a very different nature. Alex, what should we do to revisit the BIA taking in consideration social distancing and work from home practice?
Sure. Thanks, Bhavna. So in continuation to what Karan mentioned at the start of the discussion, pandemics as a scenario or a event or a threat was always there as a part of BCM's business impact analysis. And why I insist so is because when you actually do a business impact analysis, your idea here is always to identify what are the disruption scenarios which can actually, if it happens, lead to service non-availability, and then based on that you do an impact over time and then arrive at recovery timelines and all, right? So just want to put that or reiterate that fact that this has always been there, but what has happened now, and again I just take a thread from what Pawan mentioned. I think there was a mention of, is this the right time possibly, right? So for doing an impact assessment. So my take on this is that there is no right time actually, if you see, right? There's no perfect time as such. Okay, but the idea here is that when things change, those changes have to get accounted for. Okay, and now since things have changed, right, with higher with arrangements which like remote working, work from home options, social distancing, all those areas, things, that aspects which possibly was not as exhaustively covered earlier, right? So work from home as an option has been there again in the industry. Nothing new about that, but um, the coverage, the coverage which we are seeing today is enormous, and because of that aspect, what has really happened is there is a need for a proper check on this manner of impact assessments, right? So the idea would be for the organization to typically look at overall a review of the levels, right? Different organizations based on the size and scale of the respective organizations would do it at multiple levels, right? There could be organizations doing it, small organization doing it at maybe one level, or maybe some at 2 or 3, 4 levels, and all those things. So the point here is, this is actually, if you look at it like an opportunity, there is a case for taking this as an opportunity and doing a thorough review and recheck on the logic that was put in place earlier for arriving at the impact assessment, covering the various services, how they were prioritized, what arrangements that they had put in place. So when you look at arrangements, again, that's what comes in, right? So very clearly a room for including this as a documented arrangement, documented information. Again, a lot of standards specifically insist on that. But this is especially important. And if you look at it, there are organizations typically saying, will this be a long-term change or a short-term change or whatever it is. My point here is that irrespective of thinking about looking too far in the future, because too far in the future is like mostly it comes out as academic, especially when you look at organizations. So my point here is because of the change, look at it that there are arrangements which have actually changed, and if the present impact assessments are not accounting for the change, there is no other time than now to actually look at it and make those suitable changes. Okay, so when that happens, there is a need for overall updates and overall changes that need to be done. People have to aligned to that, because there's actually a larger organization activity to be done. So if there is a need for awareness and training to be ensured for people who need to actually do this action, so there is again that opportunity to do that, where organizations could drive this across the organization, starting from the top, covering all levels, making sure that this becomes a part of the revised arrangements. There is also talk about, so earlier if you see typically, especially for IT and ITS, the concept of relocation sites or primary site or backup site, all those were there, a very conventional way of looking at it. Now, because of this change, so obviously those additional arrangements have to be very clearly called out and included. Okay, so that is from an arrangement perspective. If you look at dependencies again very important, because there has been a lot of changes. When you look at dependencies, it could be internal employer-related dependencies, because if for those respective services, that kind of coverage was not there. Looking at a large-scale employee unavailability scenario, the need for higher IT focus. When I just take one small example, I think if you look at IT as a function, there are various services that they provide to the organization, right? It could be a LAN service, it could be a VPN service, and all those things. So I'm just taking those two as a point of mention. The reason being that earlier LAN used to be possibly, that was more clearly used as a priority service, because of the fact that majority of the people were required to be working from office, and if there was an outage, obviously this became a priority number one in that sense. But now VPN as a service, I think I just heard earlier about enabling VPN for a larger community. That actually has become a very important aspect to that, ensuring information security controls and the various requirements which are there to make sure that people, when they connect to their whatever, either the organization portals or their intranets or internet or whatever it is, and even the client if that is involved. So VPN as a service, obviously those services becoming important. If you look at dependencies from a services like courier services, right? Maybe if in the earlier times, maybe it was, if it was not very important, maybe it has become important, and vice versa. There are a lot of such services which have to be relooked at based on what we have actually seen now, right? So so these are typical dependencies. We also have to look at clients, right? There are a lot of client requirements, right? So a lot of things which have happened now, where since this couldn't have been forecasted or predicted, I think our contracts with clients possibly could need to be revalidated to align to the new normal, and take a call on whether it becomes a kind of an ongoing norm for ensuring as part of ongoing activities. So client related dependencies, very important for reviewing and making sure that organizations are aligning to the client as part of this particular assessment. And now getting back to that important point, which again Pawan had highlighted earlier on the vendors, MSME vendors, and all type of vendors, right, who all support the organization to support various activities. And I especially like the term about being humane, because see, this is that time I think organizations cannot really think in silos, and obviously it has never been the case in that sense, but you always have that thought. Normal times you always think about yourself, but here if you take care of your partners, that itself is actually looking after yourself is in a way I want to highlight, because see, around this time it's essentially important to support the vendors with whatever can be done, right, while making sure that the right amount of reciprocal support is available, right, to ensure ongoing business continuity. Because the point here is that I don't think it can continue to be a very transactional kind of relationship. Possibly it could have been earlier. Maybe this is that time where there are vendor organizations who could be under pressure, right, because of whatever reasons, right. So this is that time where I think that confidence has to be there, making sure that okay, people are aligned, and those adequate coverage has to be covered. Let's say if it needs any changes in the contracts, right? I go back again because those are very important. At the end of the day, what we do on
Looks like there is a technical glitch with.
Yes, maybe. Okay. So, Bhavna, you're on mute. You're on mute. Bhavna, you're on mute.
Thank you, Alex. No, I'm not on mute. Hello?
That's fine now.
Am I audible now?
Fine now.
hello.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Alex.
Go ahead,
We'll move on
Bhavna.
to the next question.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
We'll get back to Bharat. What are some of the key learnings for an organization with respect to GRC vertical, governance, risk management, and compliance, especially compliance? How are we supposed to track this? What are the key metrics?
Well, I believe the pandemic has impacted in a such a way. So the main ingredient of our business, people, process, and technology, the whole upside down changes will happen in terms of risk management, because we need to consider a lot many things. Let's start with people. So people, as we all know, that we'll have to ensure the social distancing or whatever pandemic law is there already in force. So we will have to abide by those requirements, and therefore let's take example of real estate. Those who cannot work from home, like in the process or processing companies, or those who are manufacturing, I think their plant will go for completely redesign. They will require to change right from the design to the the supply to the delivery station. The whole supply chain will be changed. So that is one of the major impact coming from this pandemic, and therefore it is linked with this GRC. The other problem would be the technology. Now, I'll touch upon the technology completely from this security part later on, but right now the technology what we are using, how much we are compliant to various requirement or various legal laws and all this. That is considering only when you are in very secure portal, because all we were working so far into control environment. Now the control what you were enjoying in your company, or I would not say enjoying, were enforced by your security people in your company. The same seamlessly has to be extended to your home or wherever you are working. Now the larger issue would be about one, the scalability, because while we all are talking very nicely, and I can see Subat or Bhavana and everybody, you are facing a problem of network, right? Sometimes you go off, sometimes go on. So that's the scenario when we are sitting in big cities. We haven't seen the scenario in the rural part of this country. So that infrastructure is already chalked up. So we are talking about the all goody thing which we are talking about, the 20% of India. We haven't think about the 80% of Bharat, where the larger population stays, because the business continuity and businesses are not concentrated only to the metro cities, but there are big industries even in the small part of the region. So how are we going to cope up with the technological challenge? That is going to be one of the important risk factor in terms of the continuity of the business in the coming time. The third is about the process. Now, coming to the process part, the compliance has a major role to play. Now, when I was talking about the security control, and earlier also I mentioned that as I was a CISO of the one of the most critical organization of this country. So I used to always say, no, I'm not going to give any access to you guys. Why you need this? I used to ask 100,000 questions, and people literally pissed off with my questions. Now I cannot extend the same kind of question that, okay, why you want to this access? because now there's a new normal. Person has to work from home. He has or she has to continue with whatever work. But there are the segmentation in people as well. There are people, let's say front-ending people, the BPO people, and all this. Let me give you a statistic of my own company in FIS today. We have around 65,000 people worldwide. You cannot imagine 98% people are working from home. Look at the 65,000 not smaller, even 60,000 people working from home worldwide. Look at the kind of security challenge it is creating. How are we going to manage those challenges from the compliance perspective? The important aspect coming here is when you are working in MNC or even in a local jurisdiction. Two important parts. One is the security, in terms of confidentiality and privacy. Now, look at the way, I used to manage fraud management in my company earlier. So, for fraud management, we allow only the real clear card data only to few set of people, those who are really working on the fraud management and those who really need to have it. Now, the same guy working from home, we used to have a separate enclosure. We used to have privacy screen on the computer. So even person is standing next to him cannot see on his screen what is going on. But now the same person is working from home, his screen is coming next to me and sitting with me and he is watching what I'm doing. How are you going to ensure the confidentiality? Look at the privacy, GDPR or California data privacy law. How are we going to see when you can't see? We have to be practical. I can't say no to my wife not to sit next to me while I'm working. If she wants to talk to, she can see my screen. How I'm going to make sure that I'm compliant to all necessary laws and requirement in terms of the GRC. So that is what is going to create lot many issues. Of course, I am not trying to kind of creating a very bad picture about compliance, but definitely there are challenges in terms of meeting compliance because the things have become much more complex and on all your law requirements, be it RBI or SEBI or TRA or international law, the pandemic law is superimposing on all other conditions. So you in rest of the thing you have some other exception, or you can take some workaround, or you can take some risk acceptance. But when is a pandemic, if somebody is found positive in your organization, you have to shut down your office. Nothing doing. In that terms, you have a lot of challenges and a lot of new thinking will come to meet the compliance requirement as required by the laws. What do you, Bhavna?
Okay, thank you so much, Bharat. Let's talk about organizational resilience, which has been a corporate boardroom clarion now. Karan, should the new BC plan or pandemic response be written and executed, especially with regular monitoring of health and identify critical staff?
Hi, Bhavna. Thanks for coming to me for this question. Can you hear me? Just a quick check.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Before I start expressing my views about organizational resilience, which is kind of the ability to bounce back, and a typical definition which we have seen within our space, it's like to anticipate, prepare for, respond, and adapt to the incremental change and sudden disruptions to our operations to survive and prosper. How much we have done it, and when I kind of go through it, I remember this one organization called Stora Operation, which is actually a Swedish copper mine, which dates back its history to 1288, it has evolved itself now to be a paper, pulp, and biomaterial group in Finland. But it has evolved with a period of time. It has gone through multiple takeovers, bid, reformations, industrial revolution, wars, regional, and now undergoing survival through a pandemic. So what makes organization survive these things? It's the agility and ability to kind of evolve as the threats comes around them. Should pandemic be a part of the plan? Definitely. But again, it should not be only a part of the plan. It should be well executed as well. That's where things come into picture, that when the rubber hits the road, that how well we can do. So my biggest challenge is that for any board, there are different risk vectors. Cybersecurity, pandemic is one thing, business continuity, privacy, and board or the company always have got finite resources to live with. And each of these risk vectors are trying to go for some of those finances and the resources from the board or the company leadership team, and you have to make a case for it. The challenge with business continuity or pandemic is that there are long gestation risk. It will not happen tomorrow. The board will not see the immediate impact. They will see the issue when something really goes wrong. So you have to make a very good case to have the board involved in these kind of decision making and to give appropriate resources. Can we do that? Yes, definitely we can do that by going through something called testing, and how practical that testing should be. And if I look at that, having a specific to the pandemic, need to go beyond typical pandemic scenario and the contagious illness plan for the whole organization. For example, within how many organizations gave flu shots to the employees? Maybe 2 to 3%. But it's well written research that flu shot decreases absenteeism by 60%. How many companies have got the cross-functional teams to work on pandemic scenarios? Right, as you start from 2003 to 2020, it started with H1N1 SARS and we are with pandemic. It's gonna come, but again, it will all come down to the resiliency of the BCM professional, how he drives the point with the board members. That's very important. We need to be pessimistic in the approach, but again, give very optimistic that we can do it. And that's if I see it more minor details, like I remember the kind of exercise we did long back with one of the financial organizations I was part of it. We did week-long pandemic exercise. We simulated absenteeism across the board. It was participated by the CEO, leadership team, and to the level of the team leads. We kind of built in the infrastructure 3 months before, and we randomly took out the people at the process level, even at the activity level, to 30 to 80%, and let the team lead fill up the surveys. And the CEOs or the leadership team used to come to the tabletop scenario meetings and say that how much is the impact on the customer delivery, legal, and other things. I think it's all comes down to how well you can articulate in the board, how well you can muscle yourself to say that this is really important. I'll be very practical about it. Privacy will be important, cyber issues will be important, and then you're saying the pandemic, which is a once in 100-year scenario, can the company spend money on that? It's difficult, but again, doable when we really do a lot of more practical testing and exercises with them. Over to you, Bhavna.
Thank you, Karan. Let's go back to Suba. So what do you feel are the immediate short-term and long-term impacts of this crisis on overall business from operations, financial, and regulatory issues?
So let me start with the regulatory first, because that's an interesting one. We talked about operations issues between different members of this panel. So I think, and having spoken to a few regulators around the world the last couple of months, I think we should expect a serious review of the regulatory framework across different industries. And typically, again, I bring down the point that most of us, when we think about regulatory issues, we think about banking regulators and the financial service regulators across the world. That's critical, but that's not all the regulatory issues there are. There is a pharmaceutical is a significantly regulated business. Life and death depends on it. So that's a regulatory realm, right? Similarly, and there are other examples around that, like aerospace and aviation, marine safety, food and food safety, so on and so forth. We should expect a significant shift in how regulators look at both, the regulatory approval process as well as the kind of risks that they accept and don't accept. There will be some risks that were probably at the threshold or not accepted before, and suddenly now it is the new normal that everybody is working from home, and lo and behold, it has become an acceptable risk. And there will be new issues that will keep cropping up, which will not be acceptable and will need a different solution. how that works out in a pandemic scenario, or in the scenario where there is a serious disruption, is something that it's a known unknown. We know it will happen, but we don't know the true contours of it. Take a few leading indicators, right? We know that over the next few years, we'll see less physical points of presence and more online points of presence, right? There'll be banks will start shutting down branches as soon as they can, and will start investing more and more in online presence. It's a given. I mean, the official stance in public media may be different. It's inevitable. We will see a more rural push. Companies know that, that has been a part of across the world, less affected, less impacted. There is a large market. Urban markets are seriously disrupted. There will be a rural push, and a certain de-emphasis on urban growth. How does that work out in a regulatory sense? All our many of our products, right, from financial products to a lot of pharmaceuticals, lot of like regulated products, they are only published in English, for example. At most, you'll find something in Hindi, right? But that's not where the markets of tomorrow are. And so, how do we address regulatory issues in where the large part of the new customers that businesses want speak neither English nor Hindi? I mean, so how do you do, financial product literature in regional languages? How do you do pharmaceutical labeling in regional languages? How do you do food and health safety, disclosures in regional languages on packaging, so on and so forth, right? So a lot of these issues will start coming up. And as risk and business continuity professionals, our value will show up on how early we engage, how intensively we engage, how much business acumen we bring to the table. A direct corollary of that is the operations model that we talked about somewhat, production with social distancing, logistics with social distancing, support functions, operations model, primarily remote, work from home, warehousing, testing, distribution, how do those work out? So this will change. There are, again, looking ahead and simulating ahead, there are some things that we know will happen. For example, input costs will probably increase as bankruptcies happen, as supply chains become disrupted, as businesses desire a more de-risked procurement model, de-risked outsourced production model, de-risked distribution model. The moment you move from scale to de-risking, costs will increase in each step of the business all along the way. Same with financial services. So how much of that cost can be passed on to the customers? Unknown. How many organizations can bear that cost? Unknown. Different companies have different appetites and financial cushion to bear these input cost increases, right? So, so we know these kind of disruptions are coming. And again, as BCM professionals and risk professionals, it's upon us to trigger a lot of these discussions with the leadership and with business leadership and management, to drive these conversations and figure out what does the risk, where does the risk reward balance lie? All de-risking, again, let's accept that all de-risking involves cost, right? And how much cost, where do we draw the line? A lot of the solutions are unknown, but I think it's time for us to acknowledge the problems that we know either exist or are coming down the road 3, 6, 9, 12 months down the road, and start having those conversations now. Bhavna.
Bhavna? Okay. I think Bhavna may be having a... Bhavna, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Now it's okay.
Hello?
Now fine.
Hello?
Now
Can you hear
fine.
me?
Go ahead with the last one.
Okay. So thank you so much, Subha. Hello.
Thank you.
Yeah. So now, since we've understood the processes, requirement frameworks, Pawan, can you throw some light on what are some of the competencies that should now be needed in future business continuity and organizational resilience professionals?
Yeah, thanks a lot. I hope I am audible. I think, yes, we overshot time, so I'll be very, very quick and short on this. I think it's a very, very interesting times for all the risk professionals, not only for business resiliency professionals. I think it's a time for those paper tigers who can create great PPTs and Excel sheets, and that is over now. I think it is really, real hard-bred people who can actually stand in the front and says, yes, I will handle the problem. I will not run away from the issue. I think that is the time. So we really need people who can really stand and face the bullet in this situation. Just to add it up, I think one of the very important aspect we have never thought about in any risk professional is the psychological aspect. Is he or she really capable of handling a crisis? Because risk management is not first choice career for anybody, at least in India. Most of us who are sitting here are by default or by forced or by I think we never as a child nobody asked that I want to be a BCM professional. I don't think so that exists, kind of a thing. So I think it's very important that we may learn about the how thing happens, but the psychological aspects, there have been a lot of studies. Maybe I'll ask more to Bhavna on this, that there are very few PhDs on business continuity. Are people even talking about psychological aspect when you hire a person in BCM fritter in this role? Are there any kind of a psychological matrix test which are done? Test about why is he or she capable of, does he or she have a stress resistance? Can they cope up with stress? What will be the effect when the complex situation comes? So I think a lot of people says pandemic, yes, pandemic, but what happens when the pandemic and the cyclone and flood and rains comes in Mumbai together? How do you handle multiple scenarios? So effect of complexity. So I think very, very important that it needs to be institutionalized, and that is where I think I will drive more towards organizational resiliency. Now is the era of not talking about function or a business process. I think we have to move to an era of our as an organization culture. Are we resilient as an organization? Do we have those whenever we are setting a new process or new function, new location, a new business? Are we putting organization resiliency as a part of our business on that? I think very, very important to have those aspects, and that is what I feel the newer generation of BCM professional will have to move towards, and they will have to be more I'll say psychologically agile. And I like to quote here one of the, I think that has always been in my mind. One of the physical security and BCM heads of one of the global US MNC, a US guy, a ranger from US Army. He told me that, Pawan, we are paid to be paranoid, but we should not. But we have to manage the stress of senior management. We have to ease them, we have to ease their nerves, but we cannot be complacent. If we start thinking that this cannot happen, this will never happen, this only happened to our neighbor, then we are not doing our job well. We should be paranoid, but we should not make other people paranoid. Our job is to be paranoid, think about it, think it through, and help other people to ease their nerves. So I think that is what is the competency. I think we have excellent documents, excellent processes in place, but we need people who can really think, who are agile, who are psychologically stable, and can take decisions in crisis. That is what I feel the future lies for the business continuity professionals. I think over to you, Bhavna.
Okay, so I'm not sure if Bhavna is there. Maddie, if you can put up the last poll.
Okay.
Thanks, Pawan. Thanks for your input on this.
Thank you.
Really, I can say insightful.
Thank you, Umesh. Just on a lighter side, Saurabh. Saurabh,
Yeah, Pawan. Yes, I'm there.
am I audible?
Yes, yes, you're audible.
Yeah, I think one of the options which is missing in this poll is never. That should also be a poll question in your last this thing. One of the options.
Okay, you keep that into consideration. Good one.
Thanks.
Done, Maddie? I think we can end the poll.
Yeah. So I'm done. So I'm closing this poll. So let me know when the results to be published. So I'll have to do it for the previous one as well.
Yep, and always do it right after this. So I guess, a very interesting session. I have myself learned a lot. Let me just kind of, go through whatever I have taken as my own notes. New normal is going to be part of life, and we have to put this as holistic as possible. So great inputs. Internal audits, it helps. That's what panel says. We all should be cheering for that. However, the action should be aligned with the business objectives. That's very important. BCM needs to make determination of the end-to-end business process. It's not like let's do it in silos. No more, no more. We can do that. And the key is in terms of doing the exercise or the simulation. It's actually over there. BIL logic needs to be reviewed. This is just to ensure that we are incorporating the new working conditions that we have been forced to at this point in time. So that's been incorporated. Working capital management, I think it's a very nice point that, that's what we are calling it to be like business continuity. Capital is important, and we have a session going forward on finance. So I'm going to put up this point so that working capital management, it should be a BCM focus. Wonderful point. Serious review of our regulatory frameworks, according to the industries, or rather basis industries. Pharma was given as pharma and IT we know, so let's find out for others. Compliance challenges, this has to be taken hand in hand, keeping into consideration, I can say the limitations or the overall support that we have from technology. So both the things, compliance and technology playing together there. And we should, as leaders, wonderful, last notes from Pawan that as leaders of the BCM, not being chosen, or rather being chosen, not being made for that, but however we have survived and we know what to do. We should be able to cushion this paranoia which is, there throughout, without letting both the top management and the people down the road even understand that there is an issue. So we should be more than soldiers. So kudos to this community that we are there together, and I think we can do much more better. This is just, I can say the game is just starting. So wonderful. I can again this panel. Thanks to the panel, thanks to everyone who has taken their time off, the leaders, and to their weekend timing. The numbers I can see there are the numbers were not that much from the previous ones that we have been through. Maybe technical glitches. Let me just find that out. However, like we said, this precious video, I can say this precious 90-minute video will be put on the internet for people to download and review. I am sure I have myself learned a lot from this session. Others will. So thanks a lot. All the panelists who have taken their time, great inputs. And with that, I can only say, Maddie, if you can play the video before we go out.
Or a video, you will have to pull it up from your end. It's there on your login.
I will do it. I will do it. I've got it.
This assessment allows you to measure your individual capabilities with organizational resilience as well as the behaviors that you exhibit. And you can see a little bit here of the different strategies and dimensions that are covered in our organizational resilience capability assessment. ICOR has the only organizational resilience assessment that includes both capability measures as well as behavior metrics. In addition to helping organizations become more resilient and to get a measure of their capabilities, we also have identified competencies that the individual needs to have in order to lead their organization in making a more resilient organization. We recognize those competencies with our certification program as a Certified Organizational Resilience Manager, Professional, and Executive. We also have a series of courses that focus on those competencies to help you earn the ICOR credentials. The purpose of the program is to learn what it takes to be a leader in organizational resilience and to understand the competency areas required to lead an organization's resilience strategy. It is intended for those responsible for increasing resilience of the organization and for managing risk throughout the organization. These courses provide you with the knowledge of how to build more resilient organizations. When we look at our competency model, this really identifies what it takes to be a leader in organizational resilience and helps you to understand what do you need to know to increase the resilience of your organization. It defines the competencies and knowledge necessary for those designated to intentionally increase the resilience of organization, supports organizational resilience practitioners in their career and professional development, and helps organizations build approaches to identify and cultivate high-quality organizational resilience leaders, individual contributors, and teams. Our model is comprised of 5 clusters. Each cluster is comprised of 5 competency areas for a total of 5 clusters and 25 competencies. And those range from organizational behavior, organizational infrastructure, preparedness and managing risk, technology infrastructure, and continual improvement. Depending on how many competencies you complete, helps you to earn the manager, the professional, and the executive level of certification. If you would like to learn more, you can visit both the ICOR and the SkillEarn websites. You can contact us each by phone or by email.
So that was our message from Nila Nelson, who is the president of ICOR. Thank you, everyone. Once again, we are done with the session. And again, thanks a lot for all the panelists over here. Thank you for taking your time to share your knowledge.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.